And right in the heart of downtown stands the statue of the man that made everything you're seeing a reality. This statue is for Charles Melville Hayes, and don't let the modern rewrite of Canadian history fool you. Hayes was one of the most consequential pioneers in Canada's history. At the turn of the 20th century, Hayes took over the helm of the Grand Trunk Pacific Railway, and with the Canadian Pacific already having a 20-year head start with their coast-to-coast railway, Hayes was prized to complete the biggest engineering project in the world. A coast-to-coast railway from Moncton, New Brunswick to their headquarters in Montreal, before making it into the prairies of Winnipeg, Manitoba, and stretching 3,000 kilometers northwest to the Pacific coast, ending right here in Prince Rupert. Now, despite being nearly 1,000 kilometers further from Winnipeg than the Canadian Pacific was in Vancouver, Hayes believed its port, being 2 days closer by ship to Asia, would draw global traffic. And when passengers saw the terrain that his trains traversed, he knew there would be no comparison. Construction began in 1903 with the government funding the entire railway up towards Winnipeg, where the Grand Trunk Pacific would then take over. They would begin in Winnipeg, stretching to Melville, Saskatchewan in 1906, and into Saskatoon for 1907. They'd pierce across the prairies and into Edmonton by 1908, and through to the Rockies of Jasper in 1909, Prince George, BC by 1911, and finally reaching the coast in Prince Rupert in 1914, driving home the last spike on April 7th of that year. In less than 1 decade, Hayes had transformed what was once a dense coastal rainforest into a clear development ready to tackle his vision of turning Prince Rupert into Canada's metropolis of the north that he had envisioned. And backed by deep-pocketed investors back in London, Hayes would set out to build a network of the most luxurious railway hotels the world had ever seen. He'd start in Ottawa, Washington of the North as he called it, and construct the Chateau Laurier, heading west into the prairies of Winnipeg and constructing the Fort Garry Hotel a year later. From there, they'd build the Hotel Macdonald in Edmonton for 1915, with plans for 5 more hotels to come. The Chateau Coupel in Regina, the Chateau Myatt Hot Springs in Jasper, the Chateau Mount Robson, the Chateau Prince George, and the crown jewel of all of them, the Chateau Prince Rupert. A 15-story castle constructed of the same Indiana limestone and copper roof, just like all the other Chateau hotels, with a central tower and 2 adjacent 12-story wings beside it, with all 450 rooms towering above the Pacific coast, ensuring that the chateau would be the first sight of Prince Rupert that you would see, whether you arrived by steamship or by train. And Hayes even hired Francis Rattenbury, who drew up the original Banff Springs, Chateau Lake Louise, and Empress Hotel designs for the Canadian Pacific, but had recently been fired for creative freelancing, which was exactly why Hayes hired him. From the grandest of ballrooms to breathtaking dining rooms, and if you have had the chance to see how beautiful the Chateau Laurier, Fort Garry, or Hotel Macdonald are today, considering that all of them were considered to be watered-down versions of what Hayes had planned for Prince Rupert, for me, it is crazy to imagine what could have been here, and for context, the Chateau Prince Rupert would have been pretty much the exact same size as the 3rd Hotel Vancouver that opened in 1939 and still stands today. But in April of 1912, Hayes had traveled to Europe to secure more funding, pick up the entire furniture order for the Chateau Laurier's grand opening in less than 2 weeks, and most importantly make a deal with the White Star Line to bring passengers across the Atlantic to ride a Grand Trunk Pacific passenger train. But as fate would have it, Hayes would find himself on board the Titanic and go down with the greatest ocean liner of his time that night. And now without their visionary to push forward, and the switch from a liberal prime minister in Wilfrid Laurier working with Hayes to build his vision to a new conservative prime minister in Robert Borden who was very anti-competition for the Canadian Pacific, the funding would dry up, terms would change, and the dream of Prince Rupert truly did go down with the Titanic at 2 a.m. on April 15th of 1912. The Grand Trunk Pacific would go belly up in 1920, and they were the last of over 120 railways to go bankrupt and absorb into a new government-operated Canadian National Railways. But there is some good news, and that was that Prince Rupert would get its first train station in 1922, and that station would serve passengers until 1986, when Via Rail Canada would close her doors for good. The station sat vacant until 2020, when a brewery owned by 3 locals would step up to restore it. And in 2023, for the first time in almost 40 years, the station would open. This was a clip for a full-length show. If you want to watch the full episode of the clip you just saw, click right here, you get the full show, and they go up live every single Sunday. If you want more clips of what you just saw, click right here, you can see the next great hit.